Good evening and welcome to Connect to Escape. My name's Kara Sterling and tonight we're going to be discussing hope. What does it mean to have hope? Is having hope just another way of setting ourselves up for disappointment, or can it actually be of benefit to us? This is what we're going to be finding out tonight on Connect to Escape. Joining me in the studio this evening, we have Patrick Johnson, who is currently studying for a doctoral degree at King's College. We have Sophia Peart, who is a student of theology, and we have Andrew Leyland, who is currently the Director of English at Newbold College. This evening, our theme is hope. And to sort of get us into the discussion, we went out and we asked people what they thought the most realistic disaster movie was. We also asked them if any of these films happened, what would be our hope for humanity? Let's have a look at what they said.
What is the most realistic disaster movie that you've seen lately?
Oh God, I don't think there is one, to be honest.
I don't know if I've seen any. I'm not really into disaster movies.
I don't know, most of them are usually made up.
Just wanted to ask you about a film.
That's an interesting question.
I don't watch them. No, the other night it was like the Holocaust, you know, with all the Jews being killed.
Probably for most technical accuracy, probably Day After Tomorrow.
Ooh, I'm trying to think.
No comment, sorry.
A recent one that I can remember was The Day After Tomorrow.
I don't know, Day After Tomorrow.
Why would that be?
I don't know, it's a good film, isn't it?
It would have to be someone or something outside of this world. Yeah, disaster movies seem really scary, but they don't seem solvable from the inside. So probably something from the outside.
Well, two things. One that we could do, probably reinvent society in a completely different way, or go back to where society might have started, some models. That would be something that we might do, or our only other hope could come from somewhere outside. I don't know. Jesus is second coming, divine intervention, aliens intervening, but something out of this world.
People would find hope in different things, like different religions, and
I think a lot of people would take it in. I think religion would be a bigger thing. A lot of people would be more willing to open their minds to that sort of thing. Especially in sort of like an apocalyptic situation.
I'd say just trying to stick together, because at the moment everyone seems a bit conflicted with each other. I think if the end was coming, like the world was coming to an end, I think everyone would just have to end up pulling together and trying to help each other instead of argue all the time.
I think a lot of people, I don't know, they're sort of like, you get a lot of the stronger people who would use it as an opportunity to survival and sort of reaffirm themselves that way, you know, find hope with the reaffirmation of themselves within that sort of situation.
Well, they only can trust God. We don't know where we're going to be at the end, do we? Nobody knows, and nobody knows when he's coming.
Thank you very much.
So after hearing all these answers, I've got to ask, guys, what do you think is the most realistic future disaster movie? Andrew?
Yeah, I'd say probably 2012. All of them are pretty, you need an imagination to accept any movie. 2012 because of its environmental element to it, and I can see that being kind of real, because if Earth is going to end, or how it's going to end, it could end through an environmental disaster. So probably I'd say 2012, but not totally convinced.
Sophia?
Do you know, to be honest, Keris, I very rarely watch these futuristic movies. I'm normally a chick flick girl, you know, like Made in Manhattan type of thing. I think the last futuristic movie, I don't know if it's realistic, I don't think it is, was probably Transformers. And it's that whole alien invasion thing, and the cars transform to save the world. So it's not really realistic, but it is the last one that I watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, possibly Knowing would be the one. Again, because of the environmental element. If there's going to be some kind of scenario, I think it's something environmental that will bring about a kind of cataclysmic disaster to the whole world. So that would be it for me, I guess.
Okay, well, that's interesting to know. We've got a variety here, you know, a bit of environmental, a bit of sort of mechanical cars transforming in the middle of the street. But in what way are these movies a reflection of our hopes for the future? You know, we went out and we were asking them, you know, how we hoped we'd react in such a situation. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it could go both ways when you hear what the people are saying there. Would we pull together? We would like to think we would, idealistically. And yet, often when you see total chaos break out in a certain part of the world, it's every man for himself, isn't it? People start looting and doing all kinds of stuff. So maybe I'm a little bit pessimistic, but it seems as if what would happen is we would kind of turn on one another rather than pulling together if we knew that, well, the end is near. That seems to be how we seem to manifest ourselves at the moment.
I mean, we've never had a disaster on the levels of these movies, but if you think back to like wartime in Britain, we did come together as a country to survive the disaster that it was. But I think times are different now, and I think I agree with Patrick. There would be a lot of self-preservation, a lot of people out to look after themselves and their family. And I think it would be an absolute dramatic, catastrophic thing for human beings to be faced with something what these movies present. But not sure it's going to end like that personally. I don't know. I can't see that.
I actually agree with you as well, Patrick. I think the way that the world has come now and the way that we've evolved as humans, we are so self-centred, and we would probably just turn on each other, you know, and turn on ourselves just for, like you said, self-preservation. And I think probably in these movies, the escapism, the fantasy is that there would be someone out there who would come and save the day so that we wouldn't have to turn on ourselves, or somebody wouldn't have to take us over. Somebody saves us from that takeover.
Yeah, so. And I think that really is the hope, isn't it?
Yes.
You always see it in these movies. I don't think I've ever seen a disaster movie where life just ends. We just don't. Yeah. It's not a scenario that we want to entertain. There's always some escape somehow, because there's always hope, and I think this is what comes through in most of the movies, even if some of it's, you know, somewhat futuristic. They all go off to another planet or something else, but we're preserved in some way. None of us like to think of complete annihilation, and that's just the end of life for human beings as we've ever known it.
But a lot of the movies you say about this hope at the end as an escape, it's always humanity's triumphed over something.
Yes.
Whether it's an alien invasion or it's environmental, humanity's in the end triumphed and overcome, and I think that's a little hopeful. I think that's a little bit where I think we're thinking too much of ourselves at times, that we can actually overcome anything. I'm not sure we can, but yeah, there's always an end.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's where Superman was coming from, because humanity of themselves couldn't save themselves, but this Superman could save them with kryptonite. And as long as he had the kryptonite, then he could save the whole world. and humanity would be preserved, sort of.
But when you think of a movie like The Day the Earth Stood Still, I think it is, you know, there's this alien that comes to Earth basically to kill everybody that's here, and what he's saying to the leaders of the Earth is, well, humans have just become so corrupt and so bad, we can't save them anymore. And the plea is, if you give us a chance, I'm sure we will do better. So we do think a little bit better of ourselves.
So far we've just been talking very high level about hope and basing it on what we think might happen if, you know, the end of the world were to happen. But maybe we need to have a look at it also from a different perspective. You know, can hope present itself in different ways? We're going to get back to that, but in just a moment. First, let's enjoy some music by Gerard Lamhing.
Lost in our ways, we were too far in pain. Here's what it pays. Are we too late again? Where do we go? Who do we call? Our debts are long overdue. That's true. Forgiveness, forgiveness. That's all I need from you. Forgive me, forgive me. I was too blind to see that you came and forgave me. You forgive me. It's never too late. Even though we're messed, it's not about fate. We were discontented but blessed. Where do we go? Who do we call? Our debt is to come back to you. That's true. I thought that you would have closed the door, leaving me outside alone. How can I be the one you're looking for, and still you love me? Forgiveness, forgiveness. That's all I need from you. Forgive me, forgive me. I was too blind to see that you came and forgave me. You forgive me, oh, forgiveness, forgiveness. That's all I need from you. Forgive me, forgive me. I was too blind to see that you came and forgave me. You forgive me, oh, forgive me.
That sounded beautiful. I love the acoustic guitar, and he just played it so well. This evening we've been discussing hope and really exploring what does hope mean, and also, you know, whether it can be a positive impact in our lives. We have Sophia with us this evening, and I know that you have a personal story based on hope which you'd like to share with us this evening.
Sure. My story is about well, it's about death really, and seeing hope through that situation. 2009, I lost a really close friend. Shortly after losing my close friend, I lost a cousin. And then in 2010, I lost another very close friend of mine. Now, losing my close friend was something that it devastated me. We grew up together. We met when I was around 12 years old. So we went through school together and Sabbath school, and we spent so much time together as teenagers. We'd shop together, we'd play together, listen to music together, do each other's hair. We had so many memories that were our first as young people, as young ladies, and we even went to university together, lived in the same flat. We had some of the same friends. So she was a really, really big part of my life. And in 2010, she was diagnosed with cancer. And it was quite a shock to us because we, literally within a week of being diagnosed with cancer, she was then told that she had a few days to live. I remember one day as she was sitting in the hospital and I went to visit her, we sat and we talked about future. We talked about life. And, she looked at me, she said, Sophie, to live is Christ. I'm going to live for Christ if I live. But to die, it's a gain as well. And I couldn't quite understand what she was talking about. I'm like, what are you talking about, girl? But then I remember us sitting together, looking outside the window on this sunny day, holding hands and singing, "How Great Is Our God." Even though she was in so much pain, and I was confused, and I was hoping and wishing that she wasn't going to die, she wasn't going to pass. We were singing this song, and shortly after she did pass, and I felt like I'd lost my left arm. I thought somebody just chopped it off, and I fell into a depression. I didn't know how I was actually going to survive without my friend. Even going to church and not seeing her there, going through significant periods in my life and not being able to share those with her. I really felt alone, and I really felt like there was no hope for me. There was no hope for my life without my friend. I was then reminded that one day, if I believed in God and if I believed in what she said, I would see her. I would see her in heaven. And I'd grown up as a Christian, as I'd mentioned, we'd grown up together in the church, and we'd talked about heaven before, and we'd studied what heaven would look like and what heaven would feel like. But it was just a concept at the time, It wasn't something that was tangible. But in that deep depression, without any hope or feeling like I had any hope, that concept of heaven then began to become real to me. I began to actually visualize the day that I would see my friend in heaven. I began talking about that day when I would see her in heaven. I began writing in my journal about that day when I would see her, and even making arrangements with her husband that, after she meets you, then we're going to have a meeting, That's what kept me going. That started to light something inside of me that kept me that helped me to wake up each day and to keep carrying on. Heaven became very real, and that gave me hope that I would see her one day when Jesus came.
Thank you so much for being so genuine with us and for opening up and sharing your experience. So just following on from, what you've been saying and what we were discussing before, one of the questions that people may have is having hope just another way of opening yourself up for disappointment? Patrick, what's your take on this?
Opening yourself up for disappointment. Well, I guess if you want to be very pessimistic about it, yes, it could be, couldn't it? So have no hopes and then you'll never be disappointed. And yet I think without having some hopes for the future, life would not be worth living in a sense. Sophia was talking about the depression of why get up another day. But hope for the future actually gives you a good reason to keep going on. So I think having clear hopes for the future is actually empowering for today. So I think instead of it setting you up for disappointment, it actually gives you the power you need to live well now. That's my take on it.
I think it depends what you're putting your hope in as well. I mean, I'm a very keen follower of sport, and if I put my hope in my football team, which I tend to do, I am left very disappointed all the time. But no matter what we always do, we put our hope into something, whether it is into sport or we hope into our job, that we hope we will move on to something bigger and we can be left disappointed. I think here we're talking of something more profound, deeper, something more that's within our inner core. A hope that, in Sophia's case, that there will be a day. There will be a day when hope is realised. There'll be a day when there'll be no more of these stories to share. That's the hope we're talking about. And there I can emphatically say, I don't think we will be disappointed. And it goes back to something someone once said to me. He says, if I have this hope and I'm wrong, I've lost nothing. But if I have this, if I deny this hope and I'm proved wrong, then I've lost everything. And I think that's where I see it, is that that's where real hope lies.
I'm just thinking about that individual who might be sat at home right now and looking at their situation. They might be jobless or bills might be coming through and they're thinking, I have no hope. And I know we've talked about the deep and profound hope, but just even having a glimpse of this could get better, is the thing that can change the situation. Having nothing to hang on, I think can be quite destructive to a person's life. And what's the purpose? Why would I want to carry on if there is no hope?
And I think, because that reminds me of some of the testimonies of the Jews in concentration camps. And they were saying, they could take everything from us, but they couldn't take our hope away. That's something you have deep within you. Yeah. And that was something that kept them going. That's what helped many of them survive. The hope that they would get through this somehow, that there would be deliverance one day. Those who tended to lose that hope died so much quicker. Absolutely. So there's no doubt about it that having a strong hope for the future does give you the necessary energy now to get through whatever hardships you might be going through right now.
If a person's in a place of hopelessness, how do they start to find hope? Where do they go?
I think often people I've met where they've given up, whether it's with their job, their family, their circumstance, and they say, I've given up. And I follow the question with, well, why? And it's usually followed with, because I've got no more hope. I've got no hope this can change. I've got no hope that it can get better. Where can they go? It's really hard. Surround yourself with good friends. But at the same time, that can be that very moment in the depths of despair which is, I guess, the opposite of hope, where you maybe find your hope. When you get to the bottom, sometimes we have to level out, hit as far to the bottom as we can to find our way back up. So it can be a process, as we've talked before, a part of the journey. One of the processes that is necessary for us to develop and to grow as human beings.
I think I would have to say, for a person who's feeling hopeless, that I would probably encourage them and say, somebody's probably walked the road that you've walked, and you're not the. I know it might sound trivial to say you're not the only one, but there's a story where somebody has been where you are, and their story has changed, you know. And just to know that somebody was in my situation and they are no longer in that situation, they're in a different place, can ignite some hope as well in a person. So sharing that hopelessness, that feeling, because it's very real, and like you said, it can be like a pit of despair. So that does need to be shared.
This evening, we've been discussing hope, and we've been looking at how even in the most difficult of situations and circumstances, when we have hope, it can be the driving force to help us to continue on when we're tempted just to throw the towel in and give up. We have Patrick Johnson with us here this evening, and I know you've spent some time researching and putting a little thought behind hope and what it can really mean to us. And I'd like you, if you could please share with us those thoughts.
Yes, the reason why hope is important, really, is, as someone said, where there's no hope for the future, there's no power for the present. And there are so many examples of why that really is quite true. There was some research done a number of years ago where the researchers tried to find out the effects of hope. And so what they did was they got two sets of laboratory rats, and both of them were placed in separate tubs of water. Now, the one group was left in the water to try and see how long they would last. Within an hour, they had all drowned. The other group were in water as well, but periodically they would be taken out of the water but placed back in again. And the researchers found that that second group, those rats swam for over 24 hours. And that's because, not because they were given rest, but because they suddenly had hope. If I just keep going a little bit longer, somebody's going to come and take me out. And that kind of gave an example of what can happen when you have hope, that you can undergo the most intense circumstances, and it can help you to withstand all kinds of things. Now, hope is something that really connects us with the future, just like our memories connect us to the past. How do we know what happened to us in the past? Well, we know that through our memories. We can think back on what happened. Well, in the same way, it's kind of like the future. How do we know what's going to happen in the future? Well, basically, through our hope. But you could question whether there is much hope for the future going on at the moment. It's quite interesting if you were to look at the list of apocalyptic films that were produced and look at them decade by decade, and I think they're on the screen right now, you would see that there's been an enormous progression in apocalyptic movies. So before 1950, only 4 apocalyptic movies were produced. And decade by decade, there's been a steady increase. But it's like it's taken off in the last couple of decades. So between 2000 and 2009, there were 58 apocalyptic movies that were made. Now we're only 5 years into this decade, and 42 apocalyptic movies have already been made. So we're going to break all the barriers when it comes to how many disaster movies. They're on the rise. What does that say about our view of the future? What does that say about what we think about the future? it seems like we have a fairly pessimistic view of what's coming our way. The future doesn't look very bright. We're expecting things to go pretty wrong. And it's no wonder, really, because when you look at all the predictions that are made, I mean, environmentally, all the predictions are disaster is coming our way. By global warming, we're going to run out of clean water. All the predictions are cataclysmic. When you look at economic predictions, things just seem to continue to get worse. The austerity measures that are in place in many different countries, they see no end to it. When you look at medical predictions even, just recently in England we were told that they're expecting 50% of all people in the UK to get cancer. So medically things just seem like it's just going to get worse. So what can we do? I mean, what influences our hope? I'd like to suggest 3 things: past experience, present circumstances, and future promises. When you think about past experience, how that influences our hope, our hope for the future is often based on our experience of the past. Hopefully that would have been good experiences of the past, not just poor ones. But if you've had good experiences in the past, then you have much more of a hope for the future. Andrew mentioned being a football supporter, and I'm an Aston Villa fan. And we have been where we are before, facing relegation. Based on past experiences, well, we might just make it again, you know. So there's still a little bit of hope for us, even though it doesn't look good. No, it doesn't look good at all. And actually, you know, in that ancient book, the Bible, one of the things that God keeps saying to those people who are his followers is, just look at what I've done in the past. Even though things look pretty rough right now, look at what I've done in the past and just keep hoping for the future, because I'm not going to let you down. And so that's why I say our past experience can help to strengthen our hope for the future. The second thing is our present circumstances. How we interpret our present circumstances can have a profound effect on our hope for the future. I read once of a school teacher that was assigned to visit children in a very large city hospital. And she would often get routine calls to go and visit the children that were sick, to help them with their homework while they're there so that they wouldn't fall behind. One day the teacher took a call, and she was given a boy's name and the room number, and she was told by the teacher on the other line, we're studying nouns and adverbs, so I'd be really grateful if you helped him with his homework so he doesn't fall behind with his nouns and adverbs. Of course, she was going to go, and it wasn't until she got to the ward that she realized it was a burn unit. And then she got to his room, and there she saw a boy terribly burnt and in great pain. She felt so awkward, and she thought, what is the point of me going through nouns and adverbs with a boy that's in such terrible pain? Surely there's no point. But she went into the door and stammered awkwardly, I'm the hospital teacher, and your teacher has sent me to help you with nouns and adverbs. And so she stumbled through the lesson as best as she could. And he was in so much pain he could hardly respond, really. And when she finished, she just rushed out of the room, ashamed at having to put him through something so trivial, she thought. The next morning, when she came back to the unit, the nurse on the burn unit came to her and said, what did you do to that boy? Of course, she felt really quite bad. And she was just about to start giving her excuses for, well, you know, I'm really sorry. And the nurse said, no, you don't understand. We've been really worried about him. But ever since you were here yesterday, it's like his whole attitude's changed. He's fighting back. He's responding to treatment. It's as if he's decided to live. Wow. And what happened was the boy later explained that he'd completely given up hope until that teacher came in, and he realized that they wouldn't send a teacher to work on nouns and adverbs with a boy who was dying. And just because he interpreted his present circumstances positively, it changed his whole attitude and gave him hope, and he responded and, of course, came through. And I think that could be the same for us as well. We can look at present circumstances very negatively, or if we look at them in a different way, that can suddenly engender hope in us too. And then I think the third thing is future promises. Whose promises do you believe for the future? You know, when it comes to the future, we're very word dependent. You know, whose words are you listening to? Whose words do you believe in? Because our words have great power to move us in so many ways. You know, if you've ever had someone say something really nasty about you, you notice the power that has to really pull you down. Or if somebody says something really positive, how that can really build you up. And there was a great example of this, if you remember back in 2010, when on the 5th of August, part of that mine in Chile collapsed on those 33 miners, 700 meters down in the bosom of the earth. And 17 days later, the rescuers found a little note on one of those exploratory probes. All 33 of us are still alive. And then they started drilling, and on the 30th of August, the first hole with the first shaft got through to them. And they were sending messages to these guys all the time. We're going to get you out by Christmas. Think about that, from August to Christmas. But that kept their hopes alive because they were getting these messages from the outside world. And as we know, the 13th of October, the rescue operations began. And 69 days after they were trapped, they all got out. And it was based on the fact that they kept their hope going from those messages that they were getting from the outside world. And actually, you know, the Bible tries to give us more hope. If you've not read much in the Bible, you may think, well, it's a lot of do's and don'ts in the Bible. The most frequent command in the Bible is, do not fear. It's as if, you know, in one place it says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. So God is a God of hope. 52 times, actually, in the second part of the Bible, hope is mentioned. And some of the most hopeful words that Christians know of is where Jesus himself says, don't let your hearts get shaken out of place. Trust me, trust my Father. I'm going back to prepare a place for you. And if I go back there, I will come back again and take you with me to be where I am. That was what you were talking about, Sophia.
Absolutely.
Those are some of the most hopeful words that could ever have been spoken. And I think they're the words that most Christians rely on, that Jesus has said, I will come back. And I guess if you are thinking about hope for the future, you need to think, okay, whose words am I listening to? Who do I believe the most when it comes to promises for the future? Where Jesus says, I will come back and I will take you to be with me. They are some very hopeful words. Yeah. And they're the kinds of words that I think can keep people going in their hope.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us, Patrick. In your talk, you mentioned how the past can shape how we hope. What I wanted to find out is how do people who have found that their past experiences have... Let me rephrase this. For some people, life has taught them that hope is unobtainable. How do they move past that?
Yeah. And I think there we can learn from other people's experiences as well. We don't have to have experienced everything to learn lessons, thank goodness. You know, we can learn from other people's experiences, and so hearing other people's stories, I think, can speak hope into my situation, even though I may never have experienced it myself. And it's a matter of hearing some of those kinds of stories, I think, that can help to engender hope in other people.
Absolutely. I think, referring back to my case, my situation, it was hearing from other people, how they had really embraced that hope of seeing their loved one again. It encouraged me to be able to make that a reality for me, because I hadn't experienced something like that before, particularly 3 people dying. You know, it was, how do I come to terms with that? And yeah, just knowing that other people can have meant that I could. And I think that's really important for people to see that others have, and you can too.
I think we've talked in other programmes together about this idea of society not being a community that it used to be, and I think this is one thing that is common to all societies today. We don't talk, we don't share our stories with each other as much as we perhaps did in the past. And working at Newbold College, where our students come with all different baggage and heartache and problems, and they sit with you, and quite often you then share your story with them. There's a release, there's a freedom that they go through that that happened to you as well. And I think most things that happen to us as people, most of us have experienced it, and we need to maybe just share our stories with each other more, comfort each other. It's very biblical to be comforters of people and share your experiences with others to get other people through. It's something we don't do so well these days.
And I think that's really the power of support groups as well for various illnesses or experiences that people have had, that you come together with other people who have had similar experiences. You realize, I am not the only one who feels like this about this situation, because others have had similar experiences. And there is, as you say, we don't share that much, and that's why support groups, I think, are so important these days, where we can share our personal experience that can perhaps give hope to somebody else, and hey, I made it through this way, try this, etc. And that way we can encourage each other.
Definitely.
So really, is hope a choice then that we make? You know, we choose to have hope?
We have to ultimately step out, like we've talked before about faith. Ultimately, yes, we have to choose to take it. That's a really tough question, isn't it? But yeah, I think ultimately we have to choose to take that hope. And sadly, some people do reject hope, which is a rejection of help, for many different reasons. But yeah, I would say really it's a choice that we have to eventually take.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely a choice, and once we make that choice to be hopeful, then I think we can walk in that hope as well. Talk hopefully, you know, even if sometimes the hopelessness may creep up, bring it back down again and say, today I'm going to be hopeful. You know, I've made a decision to be hopeful today about my current situation, and it's like lighting a candle, or lighting a fire. You need to ignite it, but then you need to keep fueling it until it grows. You know, you keep feeding it until it grows. That's hope. You got to keep it alive.
So, Patrick, just if you had to summarise the hope, you know, and summarise our conversation, what would you say? What would you say to the viewers at home?
Yeah, I think I would say, you know, we can all have hope for the future, based in a sense on what our past experiences have been, or the past experience of other people. We can learn from those, that there always is hope. You know, there is this phrase, where there's life, there is hope. So there's always hope for the future. There's hope that things can get better. But also to think about how we view our present circumstances. Can I think about it in a different way? And as you've asked, that's a choice you make. But then also think about whose promises for the future do I really believe in? And that you can choose for yourself. Do I choose to believe what politicians say, or what scientists say, or maybe even what Jesus himself says. And putting those together, I think you can have a pretty solid hope for the future.
So we've had a lot of information to be taking in this evening. You know, I for one have learnt that hope is very complex. It's not just hoping in the big life-changing and life-altering situations, but also in some of the smaller ones. And to an extent, hope is a choice, and there's more for us if we choose to use hope to drive us forward rather than sitting in a place of hopelessness where it can be lonely and it can be difficult. But while we take a moment to reflect, let's just enjoy some music from the Croydon Choir. I really hope that you've enjoyed the show this evening and that you've learnt a little more about hope. I'd like to thank the three of you for taking the time to come and share your thoughts and opinions on the show this evening. And I'd also like to thank you at home for tuning in and staying with us. I hope that it's been enjoyable. We have the next series coming up in March. We don't have the exact date yet, but if you have a look on lctv.today or the Life Connect fan page on Facebook or Twitter, keep an eye on any three of those and the dates will be posted soon. But for now, take care and we will see you soon.